I'm AJ Bianco, host of Reflect Ed, a part of the Education Podcast Network. Just like the show you're listening to now, shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
It is that time, folks. It's the High Tech Podcast. You are joined by myself, Josh, one of the hosts that if you listen all the time, you're like, we know Josh. And then I am also joined by my co-host, the one, the only, the great. I'm adding more adjectives. Illustrious.
Whoa.
William Illingworth.
What does that even mean?
It means great things.
Oh, why, thank you. Hello, everybody.
Hey, we're here. We are here. High Tech Podcast this week. Jumping in. Before we get started with our wonderful stuff this week, just our normal little opening thing that we need to remind you of, that we are on the digital spaces, the online places, and I rhymed without
I was waiting for a triplet.
Without even trying. That was impressive.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's beautiful.
Anyway, that's never going to happen again. At least unless I remember those exact
poetry.
Yeah, that's what I've been known for. Anyway, we are online. Hit us up at the High Tech Podcast on Twitter. That is the only social media we use because I don't know, managing more than one.
It's a lot of work.
It seems hectic. That's an Instagram. What's that? And don't even Snapchat. I barely snap. Anyway, so anyway, check us out there. Like, subscribe, check out the posts that we do on there. I think Will's gonna be throwing out some stuff at some point about guests. People jumping on. Yeah.
Please reach out
as we speak. Honestly, if you're listening to this episode, it's probably a little late to reach out about that post that he made because it's going out soon. But you can still reach out to us and hit us up on there to come on the podcast if you have something you want to talk about. We love talking to people. You can also send us an animal picture, which I'll get to in a second, because I need to make sure I talk about the other way you can contact us, which is email. You know, that thing. It's still there, no matter what my wife says. You can hit us up at inbox at hightechpod.us. That is our email. We'd love for you to contact us, both either Twitter, there, both, same time, whatever. You feel great. And we'd love to talk to you. But you can send us the animal picture that we're looking for this week, which is, hold on, let me look at my show notes.
Oh, he's got those today.
That's my show notes, folks.
That's your attempt at flipping through a binder.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Flipping through. Actually, it's a bag of peanut M&Ms, but it's basically my show notes.
So he wants a bag of M&Ms on an M-named animal, like a monkey.
I don't know. Oh, got it. Mammoth eating M&Ms. Okay, that's what I want. I want a picture of a mammoth.
That sounds difficult.
M&Ms, yeah, especially because they're dead. But I'm sure there's pictures. Meanwhile, someone's like, "Spoiler alert!"
I didn't know that yet. I didn't get to season 3.
Yeah. No. They're gone. Surprise. Anyway, yeah, you can hit us up at email or our Twitter. We also have a website, hightechpod.us. If you haven't checked it out, make sure to do it. We're always dropping episode pages there with resources and information about the apps we talk about. Plus, you get to see our pretty faces right on the intro of the website. You know,
what was that? I think you said .us, right? Isn't that how you said it?
No, I'm sorry. You must have heard something else. Will's hearing's going bad. Anyway, yeah, exactly. What you guys don't know is Will actually has one of those big I can't think of the word now. You know, like it looks like a record
I can't hear
player,
anything,
like
but you're
earphones.
going. Oh,
I don't.
my gosh.
You know what I mean? What do you call the things on the record players?
Oh crap!
Do they have words? Are they
a something? A phone? A gramophone?
I don't know. You know what? Why don't you intro what we're going to be talking about? Why I Google that
while he Googles that. Folks, we're pretty excited for this week. This is a non-traditional topic. It's not necessarily EdTech centric. Not all of our topics are, of course. But when it comes to movements in higher education, even K-12, the makerspace is a pretty novel idea. Now, when I say that, of course, there has been formal schools and tech schools and all sorts of things dealing with activities that had students making something for a long time. However, the specific genre of makerspace that we see today is usually very engineer centric. There might be some computer science involved, and it's kind of the DIY of having students learn to make something that suits a need or fits a need in their lives, right? So one of the early examples of kind of DIY made things that folks I've seen would do it at home was like buying a Raspberry Pi, which is a modular computer. It's about the size of a wallet, and then using those Raspberry Pis to do home automation. Earliest one I can recall seeing, I mean, probably like 5 to 6 years ago for myself, was, a DIY automated garden. The Raspberry Pi was the main computer for all the stuff that went on, and then there's tons of tests and probes and like Rube Goldberg style machines built into the garden so that if it needed water, it would give it water. If it needed nutrients, it would give it nutrients. Really cool example, but this was all done at home. Not like in a science lab, not with purchased materials that did these things specifically, right? It was someone buying these things and making it all into the end result. Frankly, another fun example of what the makerspace is these days and how it's come to be and is even getting popularized is the TV show Making It, hosted by Amy Poehler and Nick Offerman, two of my favorite comedians, favorite people.
Yeah,
but
I thought you were about to say two of my favorite friends. It's like, wait, somebody's been holding out.
I'll invite you someday, buddy.
Okay, so apparently that happens on Thursdays. I don't. That's
exactly. We podcast on Tuesdays. I hang out with Nikki and Amy on Thursdays. It's kind of
clearly.
a thing.
See, they even he got short names for him. It's a thing.
Nick and Amy, it's like,
yeah.
Nate. I pretty much just call them Namey. They're the same person. Like it's just one and the same.
Yeah,
I ship them
exactly. Anyway, the show that they do, not your close
Making
friendship
it
for Thursdays.
Making It is about people who are quote unquote artists. I don't know why I said quote unquote. That's kind of
quote,
mean. Artists.
No, artists.
They are DIY maker artists. So literally the one season, one of the guys that came on did all of his art, all of his making. His primary medium was used tires, right? So making can be artistic, it can be functional, it can be computer based, it can be just materials based, but making is a bigger movement right now. And I think one of the big philosophies that's coming that's supporting it is STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We're seeing a lot of that in K-12, and I think it's getting bigger and bigger in higher education as it's a cycle. If they need it in K-12, we have to start training them in higher education, right? It's how it builds and keeps going. So I've been introduced to it in a couple different ways, and I really think that it's a novel idea. But what happens in the classroom is that faculty will use this in one of two ways. Either as the curriculum itself, right? Hey, the course, we're going to be using this course to build things, engineer things, but we're going to make something. We might be making small computers. We might be making, I had a faculty member who did some making in one of his classes, in one of his engineering classes at my last institution. And they literally built a robotic arm that could be controlled with electrical impulses from the brain in a class.
Minor
of
stuff.
Like juniors.
I do that on Thursdays.
While I'm with Nick and Amy, you're making robotic
robot
appendages.
arms. Yeah, I'm basically Dr. Octavius from Spider-Man.
You're Riri Williams doing it in your garage.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are some deep Marvel
crazy
references, folks.
Yeah. I hope you got some of them, people. Some of you are listening.
Sorry.
Anyway.
I think that's the short and sweet. Like it's
Okay.
happening. I'm seeing it. It's becoming more and more popular. The app/community we're going to reference at the end of the episode will drive you to more resources and people who are doing this and what they're trying to accomplish with it. But I just think it's really cool. Instead of just being like a tech school where you go to learn how to weld, or traditional higher education institution where you learn computer science, right? It's this idea of like doing both. Like, let's make something, but also make it functional, or let's, it doesn't have to be. Sometimes making is just art or artistic, but it's a really cool movement. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think that, I know your institution. I don't think there's a big push for it there, but
What are you talking about? Every other week, they're like, let's get a makerspace.
Trying to make a car in the backfield and stuff like that.
That's what makes big bucks. Let's get the makerspace up and running.
Well, that's why they need to start makerspaces.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, no, I mean, like, I'm familiar with the idea. This is one of those episodes where Will's had this topic on for a while, and I just
probably since day one.
I haven't brought it up because I just like, I kind of know what a makerspace is, but it's not really my area of expertise. And
right.
I haven't really experienced one. And so I guess here be my question. Let's take this from the higher ed perspective, and let's put aside the obvious answers, which are like, I'll get a wood shop. Let's put that. I'm sorry, I'm imagining like wood shop.
Home ec in higher ed.
Yeah, which it doesn't bring good memories for me. I lit a stove on fire while making mac and cheese. I was not allowed to cook anymore.
What?
So yeah, well, it's a whole thing. There was a girl. I liked her. I was distracted. I let the oil burn over onto the fire, which, if you've never put oil on fire, it lights on fire. And then
no, it never does that.
It was a whole thing. And then in wood shop, a guy cut his finger off. So I don't have a lot of great experiences with close equivalents of what we maybe call a makerspace, in K-12. Anyway, but like, if you were gonna dream up a world where makerspaces are commonplace in higher ed, what would that, like, from your perspective, what would that look like, and how would we utilize them?
Yeah,
in higher ed.
It would definitely come from the STEM side, so it's going to be generally technology forwards. I think like some of the examples I've seen literally would be like, if you enroll in a specific degree or something, you get kind of like a Raspberry Pi package. You get like a care package when you get into the program, and it comes with a couple of Raspberry Pis and different kinds of sensors. An
actual Raspberry Pi? I'm just saying,
then a delicious
if we're playing this up, I expect the tech Raspberry
fresh
Pi
baked
with a fresh baked Raspberry Pi. That would be amazing. If anybody's thinking through this, you need to get on that.
You open it up and it's got the Raspberry Pi like company's logo on it, and you open the box and Steam comes out with just
how
a
has
Raspberry
this not
Pi.
happened yet? Is Raspberry, maybe it has. If maybe. Raspberry Pi company, if you're not the food, if you're listening to this podcast, we'll make sure you remember to mention them. Please tell us if you've ever done this. I want to know if this has happened, because if it hasn't, what is your marketing team doing, and why are they not doing it immediately? That's my
Raspberry Pi. Have you ever met the Cards Against Humanity folks? Like, literally, that should be your life goals right there. Yes. Cards Against Humanity and Raspberry Pi should get together and do. Cards should do the marketing for Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. So they get a Raspberry Pi, the computer gift, not the food, unless somebody's feeling generous. And
just other tech, and like those are things that they're going to be using throughout the course, and maybe depending on the course and what they're trying to build, right? They have to start with the Raspberry Pi, which they were provided with, but they have to then branch out and make something that's going to be specific to their interests, whether that's agriculture, right? Making a self-contained garden. That could be. For me, the first thing I would try and build if I wanted to build something DIY with a Raspberry Pi. An automated mower, right? Like, I know they exist, but I would build one for my own backyard that could just like cut my lawn for me, right?
I feel like you just had the moment of the guy who thought he invented the car, like a few years after
Henry
it
Ford
was
got the
invented.
machines
Yeah,
going.
after Henry Ford is like, guys, I just got an idea. What if we had something that ran on wheels by itself? And the friend had to be like, it's already there, buddy. You can buy it at Walmart.
I know fact checkers out there. Henry Ford did not make the first car. it's the right reference. Okay, just leave me alone. It's fine.
Yeah, it's whatever. It was the Wright brothers, right?
No, but like if I went and bought one of those mowers, right? That's gonna be the
Yeah.
Wright brothers.
you just heard that, didn't you?
If I wanted to buy one of those automated mowers, it'd be $500. But like,
Yeah.
if I could get like one of those real mowers and like a little motor and a DIY Raspberry Pi, like I'm thinking materials, I'm talking $200 there. You know, it's like it's not the same if you buy one for $700. You can
yourself
make it at home.
I guess. Well, let me go back here for a second because we described Makerspace. I have my own perception of Makerspace, but like before we get much farther with my question, I guess here's another thing that we should do. Like if we could remove the Makerspace concept from just like STEM and technology, sure, and let's get philosophical for a second, okay?
Oh, I love it.
Maybe
a
little bit more reductionist. How could we just define like what is the basic definition of a makerspace concept? Like to me, it's an environment that's left open for people to, make things. I mean, right? Like at the core, like that's how we define it. Okay. So
and like I'll give it another example. I mean, hey mom, getting a shout out, I think, for the first time on the podcast. Hope you're listening. My mom has often been a maker in her experience. She did this little moment, and I think she does them from time to time still, where she does like these art pieces that are made up of glass, right? So she'll go to like a Goodwill and buy 24 pieces of glass, whether it's a glass bowl, a glass plate, a glass cup, right? And then she puts them together with, I guess, super glue. I don't know. I've never asked her how she makes them, but she puts them together into a sculpture.
Raspberry jelly.
Yep. That's going to be a thing now. But you know what I mean? Like she makes these little sculptures out of it and they stand up tall and you can put them in your backyard for like, she's sold them as like bird baths and just like art installations, right? So that is a maker thing. You're taking maybe existing materials, upcycling them, creating them into something new. And that is also a big part of like the maker mentality. I want to take what might already exist or build something that's pretty novel or pretty simple and give it new purpose or bigger purpose, right? Like the Raspberry Pi, that's just a little computer that's the size of a wallet. You could play video games on it. You could just use it as a computer. Or some people turn it into like a home security system. Like Raspberry Pi even sells like touch screens and cameras, little mini cameras and stuff. You could make a Ring ecosystem, a Ring like thing using Raspberry Pis. So
yeah, absolutely.
The idea being, let's take one thing and make it into something bigger. That can be an art purpose or even in the sake of like, functional stuff like cars and things. Like making can take effect in cars. I mean, the idea of people who do like tuning and stuff that make their cars faster, stronger, or whatever. You add things to the existing material to change it and make it more effective for your purpose.
Absolutely. So like, okay, with that concept in mind, here's my blue sky and dream idea. Okay.
Yes.
Let's roll with this. Okay. If we could take this into higher ed, which already exists, we're not like reinventing the wheel. Okay. We understand STEM. Like, let's be honest, like institutions are pretty serious about STEM. They've got some kind of makerspace concept already built in place. In art programs, this exists to a certain extent in certain areas, right? So like, I think those are the best places to fit it in. But not every place does it necessarily this way. I'm sure there's somebody who does. And if you're listening to the podcast and you do, shout out on Twitter. Let us know that I'm not just making things up.
We'll have you on to talk to you about it.
Yeah, we'll have you on to talk about it. Right now, we don't have any way to talk about this. So Will and I have to pretend like we're experts. So
armchair experts, baby.
Yeah, armchair experts. So The concept, like what I'm thinking though, is like, what would it look like to have? Okay, let's say you build a makerspace, or you put a makerspace in place. You get resources, you're putting stuff there, or maybe it's package students get or whatever. But it's a consistent curricular idea per probably year. Semester would be difficult probably to do this with, but like where you're in classes, but you're also expected to produce something out of the makerspace like yearly, right? Like, and not
Right.
necessarily that it's gonna like go be used everywhere. Not even necessarily. It could even be, I think, even ideally, could be like low stakes, where it's not like, okay, this has to be perfect for you to finish, but it's really kind of this idea where you can take what you're learning in your classes, so you connect it back to that, to bring into the makerspace to kind of freely create something outside of just creating a project for an outcome in a course. But like the outcome is simply just to play and explore with the skills that you're learning throughout each year, right?
And that's actually a big philosophy element that I hadn't thought to include, but I'm glad you mentioned. Like, maker spaces, when it's STEM heavy, seem like it's very objective oriented, like make a robotic arm. But a lot of it comes from a philosophy of play, right? Like, the faculty don't always say, and mine specifically, that arm context, he doesn't say, I want you to build robotic arms, or that the students even have to build a robotic anything. The parameters on that assignment, if I recall, are that they had to use a Raspberry Pi, a haptic sensor, and like an electrical sensor. They had to use 3 things, and then it was up to them to imagine and create whatever it was going to be. So like, that's a very playful nature. He's got
ideas
something.
are happening. Ideas of how this can branch out beyond
Hit me with your best shot.
And art. Okay, we're gonna get a little loose with how we're defining certain things, but work with me.
Love
could
it.
you make? I'm not sure we can call it a makerspace, but we'll loosely call it that for now because I don't have another concept. Could you apply this idea in other fields? So like, let's take English for an example, right?
Love
Like,
it.
could you create an environment? Okay, this is gonna look different because obviously, what are you gonna put in there? You're gonna be like, here's some paper, you can write with. But like, the idea would be like, just simply a place that those students working on, let's say creative, major creative writing or whatever. I'm going to be honest, that's not my field, so I'm less expertise in that, what that actually looks like.
Creative writing, good choice.
Yeah, sure. But each year, right, they are basically like, hey, use these 3 concepts or these 3, elements of writing, right? And I want you to, by the end, and with, together in this room, whatever you want to do, you can bounce ideas off of other people that are in there. You're required to be in this space so much throughout the year, but I want to see you produce some kind of larger writing out of that, right? And again, a lower stakes idea where it's like, I'm just going to give you the elements of, you need to include this, this, and this, but then beyond that, have fun. Like, come up. I want you to.
There needs to be a dragon and
writing.
specific things like that, or whatever. I mean, I like that, and that kind of play approach to learning is, here are the components, create something.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I need you to reproduce this, or I want you to make your own version of something that already exists. Like, I did help a humanities professor with a similar practice. I mean, it's using this maker's philosophy, but it didn't have any kind of physical stuff to be created. That's kind of a big element of makerspaces. There's something physical, but instead of the students necessarily just writing a paper about what they were studying, he had them make videos reproducing or creating novel examples of what they were learning about, right? So it was about creepypasta. That's like internet memes, scary stories. And the goal was that they would either recreate one visually, so they had to read a written down creepypasta and create it physically, or make their own creepypasta new and, again, act it out and they had to film it and do all the work there. So that's one of those things where he's just like, pick a creepypasta and go. They had to come up with the rest of the work and the ideas and the brainstorming, and it was very playful that way. But I like that, the opportunities there to see that in higher education across the disciplines at that point. That philosophy can be a part of almost anything.
I think I'm seeing the transferable idea is taking this idea of just like a space that students go to or encouraged to be a part of to create something, whether it's something physical, something written, something that ties into the larger picture of what they're doing in their program, to just explore concepts they're learning from across courses. Like, it doesn't have to be tied directly to some graded activity in a course. It's just a required element of what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, I think that's kind of like Makerspaces provides a space for that in the more practical, like building places that we do stuff. But you could apply that I'm always looking for transferable ways, because I don't teach in that world. So I'm always like looking at this from my perspective of somebody who's not teaching how to build a car, because that you wouldn't want me teaching you how to do that. That's horrible.
Not even a tank. No, that's the purpose.
I thought the Wright brothers invented it, so I don't know what's going on.
I think that's the purpose that we try and bring to this whole podcast, right? Like, to make these things transferable for other folks to consider it in regardless of your subject matter expertise. One of the other big areas that I've heard of maker spaces being useful, and again, kind of being the like upcycling approach to tech, is getting together a engineering base, if you will, like a whole bunch of stuff to go into like low income, or even the one project I was aware of, and it was again at my last institution, went into like African countries, and they would set up a maker space, and would literally be, shipping crates full of old cell phones, old webcams, and then a bunch of old tech, right? And tools. And the students then would get the chance to work on old iPhones and old Logitech cameras and reverse engineer them to figure out how they work, and maybe try and make them into newer or better things, right? Like, they would take, this was almost like an implant or I don't know a better word for it, right? But like, they'd show up, make a maker space, and let everybody in the community give it a shot and see if they couldn't learn something about hardware, about software that they didn't know before, and make something new. I mean, I really love that.
That's cool.
In the educational context, in classrooms, it's very play based. It's about imagination. It's about trying to solve a problem. That's really good. But in like a community space, it's about giving people transferable skills that they could use to get better jobs or change their lives, or even just be more capable. I'd love to be able to fix my own phone and not have to send it in every time something happened, or buy a $300 screen because I cracked it the second day I bought it. Like, I'm too scared to take my phone apart and put a new screen in. But these kind of folks who have experience with these maker spaces will be like, oh yeah, just give me a $20 screen. I got you. Like, okay, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. It's cool. It's a cool idea, cool concept. I like it. If you are listening to the podcast and you have more experience with maker spaces, we'd love to talk to you. So make sure to hit us up on Twitter or our email, or smoke signal. But that's probably not going to get to us. I'm going to be honest. Unless you live in the east side of Lancaster areas, that's not really going to.
Yeah. And if you'd let us know about the time of day, so we could be sure to look for it.
Because there's a lot of smoke signals in Lancaster City, so it's sometimes tough to tell who they're from.
Well, if it's in the middle of the night, we're just not going to spot it.
I know. I know. It is.
Batman had a floodlight. If they've got smoke signals, it's not going to be as easy.
Ooh, a high-tech podcast light. It's just the two cartoon versions of our faces. Like, that's what everybody needs to see in the middle of the night in the city.
His beard and my naked mole rat face.
Yeah, exactly. And that will strike fear into the criminals. Now we're superheroes. They're like, I was going to rob this car, but look at those guys.
And that's what we need maker spaces for, so we can make batarangs and bat pulleys.
Exactly.
And, bat
whatever.
Stuff.
Batmobile. This is why if Will was Batman, the gadget system would have stopped real short. It would have been like,
hey, what kind of weapons you got, Bat? I got batarangs. And
I got a bat wheel. Will that help?
What's that? Is that like your Batmobile? No. It's a bat unicycle.
Yeah. And Will be like, I lost Steam. I couldn't keep inventing gadgets. Speaking of Steam,
so
Will,
good.
Speaking of Steam, not the video game platform, but I hear that
We also love that.
We also like that. Not a sponsor, but if they'd like to,
Yes, please.
yes,
Valve,
please.
Steam Deck. Anybody wants to be a sponsor?
I don't know what's being sponsored by Valve would be like, but I'm assuming it's just like raining games. Like that's my perspective. Anyway, SteamHead. This is a makerspace, right? I hope, right? Because it was tied to the topic. Yeah. Okay. This is our pseudo app for this episode.
Yes, indeed.
And my transition is done, and now I'm handing it over to the person who actually knows what he's talking about.
You stuck the landing, my friend. SteamHead.space is the website for the SteamHead Makerspace community. Their mission is to provide access to quality, relevant education focused on integrating design, technology, and community. Because when people have access to great spaces and resources, they make great things. Again, not a sponsor, but
if that was a sponsored spot, we would have been on point. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Every single dollar would have been earned.
That would have been great.
They are kind of trademarked by four main elements, right? So SteamHead has a makerspace component. They have a specific SteamHead makerspace that's located in Shenzhen, China, but they make makerspaces. They help other people do it. They do Make Fashion EDU. This is a thing that they kind of do to support the integration of fashion and technology and being a part of the education experience. They do Neighborhood Earth, and they do productions, SteamHead productions, to kind of document and show what it is to make across the world. So it's a big movement. I want folks to become aware of this, not necessarily because it's an app, but because they do support education directly. They have resources for educators. They are kind of designed and directed towards K-12, but I bet you if you reached out, they would have great ideas. Now, they have some imagery of what makerspaces look like. They have kind of some best practice lists of things you might want to have if you're gonna start making, right? And like ironically, some of it's just like a sewing machine or hair dryers, right? These are tools that I wouldn't necessarily go and think, oh my god, I need a hair dryer to do my makerspace, but they really have a lot of awesome information.
Yeah. They have like a whole list of like loose equipment that you should have.
Right.
And anyway,
it can really get things going
while he's talking.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. They do maker events. They really just try and create a space for it. So it's not like the number one. It's not like they're the perfect community or space, but they're on Discord. They are kind of an international approach. They do have more than one location. They try to, be the hip and relevant community that can help educators like you to become makers, to help your students become makers. So, it's not like a big sell here. I don't even think that there's a lot of costs that I'm seeing across the product, across the website. They do have like a shop so you can try and buy things. Maybe they sell like some swag, but also like maybe some projects, like how to do something. Like here's a DIY kit, what you would need to create something like this, right? So it's helping you get the idea for what it would be to do some of these low requirements for a making experience. So, and of course, if you get connected with their community, start on their Instagram, I suspect you're going to find so many more. This isn't something that Josh and I are experts in. I'm not even an expert in it, but this is where like I've had some faculty kind of connect with this and point this in my direction. They have a newsletter. Like there's so much that you could get involved with here and just get access to a community you didn't previously participate in.
Yeah, it's a cool site. I think the point here is that this would be a good place if you're looking to like start doing a makerspace of some sort, get ideas, get clues to maybe what you should include. And like Will did say, they do have like a shop that they sell some stuff on that looks like makerspace type supplies that you'd be able to get through them. And just connecting through their social media through on the site, and it looks like you can connect through their Discord situation through the site as well. So the site's just kind of like that's why we call it a pseudo app, because it's not really like an app as we traditionally talk about it, but it's a website that you can use as a resource as you're working through how to do a makerspace. If you start one for tanks, let Will and I know, and we'll figure that out.
ironically, I'm gonna like pivot this a moderate amount towards a few others as well, because I want this to be a resource for folks to get into making. This is one of the first ones that I connected with, but I'm even seeing in the SteamHead community some points to others like make.co. Another one is makered.org. So these are other existing maker communities, and I love that almost all three of these are starting with the language, not like, hey, here's the thing we're trying to sell, or here's how you become a maker. It's like, here's our community and our movement. Here's how to join us. So definitely check out these existing maker spaces and the resources that exist to help you take the first step. If you want to get into making, start Googling things like automated garden and at home server setup, or, hey, I'm personally not a big fan of Ring and certain companies like that because of their privacy and security practices. I won't go too far into that, but you can make that kind of stuff at home and keep all of your camera footage on your own home server, right? And maker spaces, maker communities are at the kind of core of that work. Josh and I are big proponents of and users of the Wise product and the Wise company. If you go on the Wise product forums, you see makers, right? These are people who are like, oh, I bought my Wise camera and here's how I hacked it so it doesn't, send my footage off my property, and it sends my footage to my server in my basement, right? Like, these are the folks who are figuring that stuff out at a technical level, and you can find them, of course, through something like SteamHead, but anywhere. They're on Reddit, they're on Wise community forums, they're just about anywhere we can
They're
even
in
look
your
for.
basement. They're all over the place.
Studying your habits, watching what
Yeah.
you eat.
They are everywhere.
I was scared of that one space in your basement, Josh. Now I think I know what's down there. That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Right under the porch, there's a maker space. It's fine.
Some of them, some of these maker spaces, of course, do, like I said, lean more into the art and whatever. And so, like, even one of the first pictures on SteamHead is a very artistic piece that's been made. Some of that takes welding experience. Some of it uses 3D printers. There's a lot of, physical technology that gets involved that's not necessarily computer based. You don't necessarily need to be a computer science major to start making. Like, I think that there's a lot of things you can use, even like rain catches, right? I've always seen rain catches around, like people just put a barrel at the end of their gutter or stuff like that. But like, that's just one gutter, and maybe the rest of your house's gutters don't reach that one barrel. So I've seen people get into the makerspace where they like connect all of their gutters so that it all goes into one barrel, or a series of them that goes to different barrels, but then they put in like Raspberry Pis to monitor the water level, so you get an alert when it's full and you start using the water so it doesn't get wasted. Like, there's so many layers.
So what I'm hearing, new hot take, okay? Maker spaces are just proto zombie apocalypse societies, okay? They're not there yet, but once the world falls, they
are the people.
They will have fences around their society, and they will be surviving on their own.
Yep. They're going to have like 30 computers and 3 survivors, but the 30 computers will be keeping them alive.
Yes. And they will be both using Raspberry Pi computers and making Raspberry Pis somewhere on the site.
They'll made an automated mill to grind flour to make baked goods.
That's the dream. That's the dream.
Well, I think I've made my point, right? That's a pretty bad joke, but
it was good.
It was simple. I liked it. Thank you, folks, for joining us on this one. We hope that you just get connected with these communities. Send us questions. We want to take this further. This doesn't have to be the last conversation on making. Next episode 79, we are going to dig into the beginning of what will be a long form series called The Roastery.
We are so excited.
Bring your coffee beans. We're going to start roasting them. No, that's not the goal. Josh,
now I'm sad.
Oh, my bad. You can come over to my place. I'll make some coffee.
I misinterpreted this concept.
Josh is like, this is what I signed up for. The roastery. We are going to start roasting things. Josh and I usually have kept this pretty positive.
Yeah.
We're still going to keep it positive
We
altogether.
are going to be positive most of the time. I feel like though we've been overly nice. We're
But
like, it's like,
sometimes-
does Will and Josh, do they not like? Do they like everything?
Sometimes
The
you just
answer
need
is
to
no.
bring a little criticism. You know,
Yeah,
sometimes you just
we're
need
trying to make the world better through
cut
sarcastic.
people down so that they can keep their egos in check. I mean, what?
Yeah.
What did I say?
What now? Huh? Yeah.
So our first episode of the Roastery series, which is not going to be like episode to episode, it's just going to be pop-ups here and there. We'll give you some roasts. It's going to be large LMSs, taking on large LMSs, some of their problems, some of the things that they could do better. And bring you the app Screencast-O-Matic to help you create anything visual, pictures and or recordings that could be helpful in your classroom for you and your students. That's it. We're looking forward to that next episode.
Yep.
Until then, make sure to find us on Twitter at Hightech Podcast. Make sure to email us at inbox@hightechpod.us, and make sure to go to our website,
Us.
hightechpod.us.
Us.
Thought that joke was done. No, it's not. Thank you again,
It's
as
not.
always, for joining us for another week of the Hightech Podcast, where we make things up, but also try to make the best of them. We hope that you enjoy this effort to harness technologies in the classroom, whether they're online or in the physical sense of maker spaces. Until next time, folks, see ya.
See ya.